Hey guys, Shane here, and today we're talking about tips and tricks to help get you inside the newly opened Avengers Campus at Disney's California Adventure. Now, what you're saying to yourself is, who's this guy? We've already seen other creators, right? Those YouTube guys with media passes who've shown you all the cool stuff to do and where to eat with, no lines and quick service and fully stocked shops. And the reality is that they didn't have to get up at 4 a.m. or wait in line or get past the virtual queue or try to find seating like you will have to do and like I had to do. So if you want a real perspective from a paying guest who's just trying to get into the campus, watch on. Today I've got 14 plus tips for you soon to be travelers to Disney's California Adventures Avengers Campus. Now, few notes worth mentioning, as you might be watching this later and park conditions may have changed. When we went, it was the second weekend it was open. Now, at that time, masks and physical distancing were required. The park was only at 40% capacity, and that's a big caveat here because keep in mind that as I talk about wait times and seating, we were only at 40% capacity. In a couple days from now, California is expected to go to 100% capacity. So keep that in mind as I give you the numbers and the timings. The virtual queue was in effect for the Spider-Man ride, and we had two opportunities to get on the virtual queue, 7 a.m. and 12 noon. And if you wanted to eat in the Avengers Campus, you had to pre-order your food via the app. And lastly, the Spider-Man ride was the only ride open at this time, aside from the existing Guardians of the Galaxy ride, which has been incorporated into the Avengers Campus. So, what had we heard and planned for before we arrived? Number one, long lines. Number two, food sells out early. Number three, if you don't get into the park, the campus in the morning, nor via the virtual queue, the standby lines are 5 to 6 hours long. Next, there's going to be a lot of waiting. Next, the virtual queue for the ride fills in seconds, literally seconds. And that finally parking was a nightmare, and that the parking structure opened about 30 minutes or so before the park opened, which is just ridiculous. So hopefully it's much better when you go, but you've been warned. And on to the tips and tricks that got us into the Avengers Campus and how we survived once inside. Tip number one, no parking is a plus. If you can stay on property, great. No parking to hassle with. Now, that is expensive. So we opted for a hotel across the street, strategically located across from the main entrance. Why across from the main entrance? On to tip number two. Know your entry points. The line for park access, if you're not staying on property, is via the main entrance. So avoid wandering around trying to find the line as your spot gets further and further behind. Speaking of lines, tips 3 and 4. Tip number 3, go early. Remember that note from earlier where I said that if you didn't get in the virtual ride queue or being one of the first ones in the park, you could wait 5 to 6 hours in the standby line for entry? That's if even you got in at all. We were the fourth group in line, arriving to the gates at 4:15 a.m. Now, you may not want to do that. So hopefully someone in your party is willing to shake a leg and save your spot. You just need to get there early enough so as the park opens up, you'll be in the kind of that first wave or first entry group without having to run or wait in the standby line. And having said that, be prepared. Tip number 4, chairs and chargers. Now, we brought some chairs and we had phone chargers ready to go. Now, the chairs had to be returned to the hotel before the COVID screening check station, but the staff gave you plenty of heads up on when things are going to be moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, let's talk about 7 a.m. That's important. And tip number 5, the queue. The virtual queue for ride and guaranteed access to Avengers Campus happens very, very quickly at 7 a.m. Here's your pro tip. If you can, make sure your party has everyone else's passes on their phone in the app. It's a mad refresh at 6:59 a.m. A quick join queue button flashes, and once pressed, you have to select your party and then join again. If just one of you gets in, at least everybody gets in. And let me tell you, we did not get in. The queue filled in about 4 seconds, as you could hear those whoops and hollers. The folks nearby that did get in. So be prepared. That's all I can say. Number next. But before that, quick side note. Line rage. Yes, it's a thing. We all get it. Be prepared for some line rage. The way that they move the line to get everyone in through the main gates, the COVID screening, and then the security screening will take the folks who arrived possibly hours after you ahead or adjacent to you in line. Not to worry, there's not so much available space to fill in that you're still going to have a great chance of getting a good spot where it counts, outside the park entrance. Okay, on to tip number 6, the checkpoints. Okay, so we've got 4 checkpoints in the entry process. The first are the outer gates. Staff is pretty good about opening those early, so early risers aren't blocking the street, sidewalks, and walkways. Okay? Next, they'll pull you through the COVID screening where you get to stay together as you move kind of to an in-between area just before the security check. You'll maintain some distancing, but you're really going to be preparing for the virtual queue madness. So soon after that, they're going to direct you to stand and move forward. At this point, you're standing bunched together, no regard for physical distancing. But it is decision time. On to the security check. Now, here's the decision and the next pro tip. Security is a bag check and metal detector check. So if there are members in your party with backpacks or purses or strollers, I'd recommend having the members go last through the screening so that the non-backpack purse folks can haul buns to the next area where you can join them when done. And you're almost in. And lastly, you have the park entrance gates. Here you'll be physically distanced again, so you'll have a bit of time for any bag holding party members to join you in line. But once they start letting folks in, it is a brisk walk to the Avengers entrance. Please, no running. Don't be that person, please, for everyone's safety. Okay, you're in. Now what? Tip number 7. Enjoy. Stay there, unless you have a virtual queue pass to get back in later. If the standby line is lengthy, you really want to get all you can out of the experience. The standby line when we went was 5 hours. But what if something isn't working as planned once you get inside? And we're on to tip number 8. Helpful help. Aside from the regular cast members you'd expect to see, you may see some plainclothes or business clothes cast members. These are actually the managers there to oversee the attractions, shops, rides, and especially this early on in the campus launch. So if your mobile ordering is crashing or your virtual queue is lost, ask a manager for help. We found them super helpful and real examples of Disney hospitality. On to tip number 9. Enjoy the shows. One of the cool parts is they'll have a few live action shows spread throughout the campus, which probably the most well-known is the Spider-Man one. You've probably seen that online. And the Taskmaster's attempt to steal the vibranium from Avengers Campus. But be on the lookout for Doctor Strange, the Dora Milaje, as well as other character cameos hanging out at a physically appropriate distance. Tip number 10. Head over at your appointed time for the food. If you're stuck for seating, you can head toward the rear of the campus just before the Guardians ride. There's open seating back there as well. Tip number 11. If you weren't able to make the first virtual queue for the Spider-Man ride, get your phones out for a second try. Or if you want to hop on again. But be ready just before noon with your refresh, join, select all, join rotation. Tip number 12. Be prepared for store lines and even to go out of the store to get back into a separate checkout line. Hey, and get what you want and get it fast. When we were there, the shelves were being literally emptied as the staff tried to fill them with pop figures. Pop figures is a big thing. So, tip 13. Once you're out of the campus, go visit the second store just to the left of the Monsters Inc. ride at the old Soundstage 17. Has a much bigger selection of campus merch in case you missed something earlier. And last but not least, and what I think is probably what saved the day for me, and this is tip number 14, and that is, if you can, go at night. Yep, I think the Avengers Campus looks 10 times better in the evening with all the neon and lighting. So So much better in my opinion. So if you can, either hang out or get back in when the lights come on. Such a better atmosphere. Hands down. Hands down. And there you have it. Tips from a real life day at Avengers Campus. Hey, what'd I miss? What tip will you use when you go next? Comment down below. And if you like this info, give me a thumbs up. I'm Shane. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.